Electricast.
This episode is brought to you by Voco Hotels by IHG, where you should prepare to be charmed. From Chicago to Myrtle Beach to Saranac Lake, each Voco in the U.S. has its own local flavor and unique detail. Our hosts welcome you with little extras, and you'll find rooms for catching up on me time and full-service bars and restaurants that are perfect for us time. Come on in and live the Voco life and book your next stay at vocohotels.com. VOCO hotels.com.
Hey, business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 125,000 bonus miles for a limited time through October 29th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends October 29th, 2025.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Her Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today we're talking with Yaritza Báez. Yaritza is a business and accountability coach dedicated to empowering women over 40 to build and grow profitable online coaching, consulting, and service-based businesses. With a deep understanding of the unique challenges and opportunities faced by women in midlife, whether balancing careers, family, or personal transitions, Yaritza helps her clients create sustainable business models that align with both their financial goals and lifestyle aspirations. Through her signature Profit and Momentum program, workshops, and digital resources, Yaritza guides women to clarify their vision, strengthen their mindset, and take consistent strategic action. She believes that coaching is not about telling someone what to do, but about creating a space for clients to discover their own solutions with confidence and clarity. Yaritza, I am so excited to welcome you to the show. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Leslie, for having me here.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you are here. We've known each other for quite some time now, for a few years, really, and I've been wanting to have you on the show and was excited to be able to reach out to you and extend the offer. And of course, you accepting to be a guest. So again, I'm really excited for our conversation today. So I'm just going to get right into it.
Yes.
Okay. So your work, as we know, centers on helping women over 40 build businesses that honor both their ambitions and their life season. But before we talk about what you do, can you take us back through your own journey? Because there's often a backstory many of us don't get to see, the moments that shaped who someone has become and how they now serve. So can you share your journey and maybe some pivotal moments that shaped your path from where you were to the business and coaching work that you're doing now?
Yes, I think it all started when I was living in California. Well, even prior to that, but I will say the tipping point was when I lived in California back in 2008. But yes, well, I went to university, I got my degree, I even got a master's degree, but I always end up with jobs that were truly a disappointment and jobs that I will call like a dead-end job. Because there wasn't any growth. There was no, nothing where you could progress other than, changing the job. And so, well, I went into that journey for some years. No, it wasn't what I planned. I always look for do better, obviously. I wanted to have a successful professional career. But then I got married, I traveled, I got married, and we decided, once I was married, we decided to move to the States, and we live in Florida, and then we moved to California. And my husband always will say, Yaritza, you look something to do for yourself instead of like trying to find another job or a better job. Just think of something that you could do for yourself. And I think in that year that I was living in California, I remember taking the train to work and I would think about it, So basically I planted the seed. And then that was when the financial crisis hit, 2008, when a lot of businesses crashed and everything in the markets, especially the housing one. So we end up moving back to Puerto Rico for some time. And lo and behold, after a few months, it came out the opportunity to train as a virtual assistant, something that I never heard. And when I read about it from an interview of someone that became my colleague and friend, I thought this is exactly what I need. It will provide me an income, work for myself, and also my own business. And so I did that for like 6.5 years. And then I noticed that I was enjoying more to work, to have those business meetings and think about strategies and discuss those with my clients. And after a lot of thinking about it, I decided to make the transition into business coaching because I always like entrepreneurship. Even with my husband, we used to have we have different businesses. And so it's something that I like. And it's something that I saw in my parents because they have their own business all their life. So yes, that's how it all got started basically. And then once I started training for business coaching, to becoming a coach, I decided it was going to be, first it was marketing, and then I decided it was better business. And then as you learn and as you evolve and as you grow, I started to narrow my niche, and I decided that I wanted to work with women in their 40s and 50s because that's where I found myself to be the most comfortable because of the experiences I already have of everything that I have done in the past. So that's how it all got started. This is where I am right.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that there's always, like I said, there's always a backstory, but most of the time people don't get to see that because usually when you're looking on social media, there's not a lot of share when it comes to like, this was where I was, this is the journey that I went through, and this is where I find myself. And I know that you have your podcast where you actually talk about your journey and your journey through life, what got you to where you are, and you are helping your clients to see like what the possibilities, like what it looked like from your perspective. Like, I did this, I lived this was my experience. And now you're able to help your clients to do that in a way from that lived experience. And I think that's important too, because again, the backstory is so important for people who are going to share about something, they're going to coach around something. I really feel it's more powerful when you can come from that lived experience, because then that allows your clients to be able to tap into like, oh, she understands me. She's been down, maybe not the same journey, but she's had those roadblocks, those hurdles, and she's learned what's worked best and how to actually help me work through the next steps for where I find myself. So I love that you do that. And I know that for especially high achievers, we're both in that high achieving category, because I know we both we're always focused on like what can we do that's better, looking for that next opportunity and all of that. But we're not always, I know that a lot of the time we can feel like we're in constant motion. We've talked about this personally, about the always being on button. And so we're working hard, but not always moving forward. So with that being said, how do you help your clients move from that busyness to more strategic in their designing of like what they're doing, especially in this hustle culture that we find we live in that celebrates pushing through even when it costs us our well-being?
Yes. First, I think in order to help people, I think most of all, and I think you have gone through the same experience, is that you went through that burnout and that hustle culture and suffer from that. And I remember when I was having my virtual assistant business, I did get burned out, and it took me probably like a month to recover from that. And so having lived that experience, having suffered that, and then how I came recover from that, it was a big lesson. And it's something that I think equipped me to help others, because I can recognize the signs, not just how you feel, but on the amount of work that you are trying to do on a weekly basis, even on a daily basis. So when I work with a client, I like to see the whole picture. If they're working, if they have a job, and also they're trying to start their own business or, building their side business. How can you balance those responsibilities plus family? And if you are in your 40s and 50s, maybe you might be an empty nester, but then you are caring for your parents, you become like some type of caregiver. So there is a lot of things that you gotta juggle with, but also you need to balance doing all of that and protecting your own energy. And that is where I wanted to go, the direction I wanted to go. I think the most important thing is you have to prioritize first what is most important to you, but also when it comes to your business, you have to think about what is actually going to move the needle forward, what is going to make a difference in your business. Because those things may not be a lot of them, maybe are 3 to 5 things, and you don't have to do them every day. So you have to start seeing that, look into that, and then also once you have that picture, then you start working also how you can integrate balancing your business with your other responsibility of a job and your personal, like I was saying, caregiving or whatever else is in the background. Once you have to balance, and you have to start seeing, well, what's important, what's not, what can I do with, and what can I do without? Because I think, in my opinion, it's more about managing your energy other than that. And then you work, and then comes the time management. A lot of people are morning person. A lot of, the majority, I'm a morning person, but I also work. So for me, it's tricky how I manage my energy so I still build and grow my business while I still have a job. And I'm a caregiver now. My mom passed away, but now I'm a caregiver for my father, although he's healthy and all of that. But, I like to keep an eye on him. So those are the things that you have to bring to the table, and then you start working with the person and see what it is that it lights up these people, what it is that they don't really enjoy, and work with that. Because we all have different preferences. So until you sit down with this I sit down with my client, you start finding out all those things, what made them tick, what made them, go like, well, no, I don't really want that. That doesn't work with me.
Yeah. I love that you customize it, because you're basically saying that it's not just like a one size fits all model. You actually really speak to them from where they're at, because you have your lived experience. Like you said, you have your corporate position, you have your coaching business. You also are a caregiver to your father. And even though he's healthy, you're still there because you're making sure that all his wants and needs are taken care of, because now it's just him. And so I love the fact that you talk about that, because we have, like, that's the one thing I think a lot of people forget about. They think, okay, well, I want to just do this. I want to have a different business. I want to start a business, and they might have a 9 to 5 and not factoring in that they have all of this other stuff. They could be a mom. They could be a mom to young kids still that are in school, and they're trying to push that. And so I love the fact that you also brought in energy, because that you're speaking my language. I always believe that energy management is really the first key to how you use your time. Because if you don't have the energy, no matter what you have on your calendar, you're not going to come to it at that level. But what I wanted to get back to is that I really like the idea that you talked about really where you're at, and looking at what are your priorities, because it's important, and not beating yourself up for it. In fact, today I did have a conversation with somebody who, now he's a young man he decided he's had a very stressful and very hard year, because it's become a year of no for him, because he actually ended up burning himself out this time last year, and started realizing that he was doing too much. And he said he even took some time to look back over his year and look at his calendar. And he said, I don't even know how I got all of that done. but he ended up, it became the year of no. And now he finds himself unable to at this particular moment. And he's now trying to find ways to help himself to be able to get back to strategically saying yes to things that light him up. And it's really coming from that place of not having that fear of getting to that burnout place, because I know that that's real. You've experienced it. I've experienced it multiple times, and it's really not a fun place to be. And, a month off isn't too bad, but some people I know has taken them, one person in particular I spoke to a couple of years ago now, it took her a year to really start to recover. She was lucky because she had a business where she had other people involved who were able to help her with that. But again, not everybody has that luxury. And so it's at the beginning. And that's what I love is that you're saying from the get-go, let's really look at like what your lifestyle is, and let's work on what your priorities can be. So I like that a lot, like what you do.
Yes, I think you got to establish, once you go through all of that, you got to establish what are your non-negotiables. For me, my non-negotiables is my time off. And I do work over the weekend when it comes for my own business, but I still very protective of my own time. And that means exercise, reading, even just sit for a while and watch a movie. But those to me are non-negotiables because that is where I'm protecting my energy. That's where I recharge. And so I can, charge my batteries and then continue. You cannot be on the go all the time, because that's where you are calling for burnout right there. And so I have become quite good at protecting my energy. What is my non-negotiables?
Mm-hmm.
And that is key. And a lot of people may at the beginning struggle, especially women, because they are women. We tend to be helpers. We tend to take care of everybody, and then we always leave ourselves for last. And I am not that kind. So, but for some people, that's the way it is. And so through this process, I help women to prioritize when it comes to their business. What are those, like I said, 3 to 5 things that are most important that are actually going to move the needle? And then you start working everything else out.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk about alignment because this word gets passed around a lot. And so I want to get from your perspective, what does real alignment look like, and how can it change the way your clients lead and make decisions about the things that they're doing, whether it's personally or professionally?
I think align, whether it's working with my client or even with myself, is to whatever that it is that you are doing, you are happy and you're comfortable with. And all the pieces in the puzzle, they are all put together in the right way. When you have all the pieces of the puzzle put together and you get the nice picture, then I will say you are aligned. And that's why I like to sit with my client and work the whole picture. That's like when you open the box of a puzzle and you got all the pieces there all over. And then you start sorting them out. And for me, that's how alignment, I think, just to put it that way, being aligned with your life that takes all the pieces together, your personal life, your professional life. If you work well, your career, your job, and your me time, your free time, how are you going to use it and when? That's working with alignment. And you're happy, you're happy, you feel happy and free and enjoying what you're doing. No matter what else is going on, even if you're doing different things at the same time. No, I don't want to say at the same time, but they are part of your life, of your reality.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you kind of touched on so you were talking about how women, and this is just a reality. I really thought a lot about this, and something I've talked about before is that as women, we're kind of raised to be those. It's like we are raised to be those caregivers. And when I say caregiver, I'm not just saying to aging parents, but to everyone around us. It's like to be a good woman means to do all of these things. So we put the hats on, even though, you might be mom, you might be, sister, daughter, you might be the aunt who shows up, or you might be the coworker or the friend, the go-to. All of those labels, all of those things is a lot of the time where people women, I should say, tend to like believe that that's what makes us valuable. And that's just because society has a lot of the time made us believe that just based on, you get rewarded by people saying, oh, this person's so great because she can do so much. She holds so much. She does so many things for other people. And so that becomes like this, this badge of honor. And it's nothing wrong with being that go-to person. But when it comes at the expense always that you are last, because like you were saying, then it really doesn't help you to have that quality of life that you're looking for. And one thing I often see women doing is they say yes to everything, just to a lot of things out of either habit, guilt or obligation, or even fear of missing out on things. So my question for you is, when it comes to the women that you work with, how do you help them build systems that reflect their real capacity? Because we've talked a lot about energy, and it has to match their time. Their energy has to really reflect in a way that they can use their time well. So how do you help them build their systems so that they're not saying yes out of that guilt or fear or obligation, but more from clarity and from intention, and again, being in alignment?
Well, I will say first, what are your non-negotiables? Not just on your business, professional life, but also on your personal. You have to establish what are your non-negotiables. And then you start working from there. Because once you have that, then, for example, if I have a client that is trying to build and grow their business, then you have to say, what time do you have available to actually be focused on that business? How much can you commit to that, to work on your business? And then if it's like, well, I can only do it twice a week, and in those 2 days I only can give 4 hours, then you start working with that. Because we know if the person has a job, then we know that those are, you cannot negotiate. You don't have a lot of room to negotiate. But then when it comes to if you're married, if you have family, then you start negotiating and teaching people, well, I'm going to be available for 1, 2, and 3, whichever those things are. And test, because I know changing your habits, changing your routine, at first you create resistance because, well, we although we are very resilient, human beings are resilient, but we sometimes put resistance to change, whether because we are afraid or we just don't want to change things. But you got to start from there. You got to establish how much time, how much you are willing to put into growing your business. From there, then you say, okay, again, what is that is going to move the needle in your business? What are those tasks that are actually going to make the difference? And then you use the time that, if it's like 2 days a week and 4 hours, then you're going to really be laser focused on those things.
Yeah. I think again, it comes down to being really clear on those things, because I know from personal experience, way back, I was saying yes to everything. And all I was doing was just spinning my wheels, because I would say yes to doing, this challenge or this webinar or this workshop, or yes, I'll work with that coach, or I will do that process. And all that did was confuse me even more. And so I didn't really have the process in place and didn't understand really what were needle moving activities. And so I never really understood that until I actually stepped back and really started thinking, okay, everyone's saying to do all these things. There's so many people telling me so many conflicting things. And so I want to be able to ask myself, what is it that really makes me feel good to do? Because ultimately, again, it comes down to how we feel and our energy. And if we can't get behind something, we're not going to feel good about doing it. And so I really like the idea of just having those, really understanding, have that clarity, and then being able to have those non-negotiables. The other part too, you were talking about the people in our lives and really talking to them about what we want, the things that we want, putting in boundaries in place. I wanted to really to bring this home about boundaries, because a lot of people look at boundaries and think it's, it's almost like they don't understand that their boundary is more like a line in the sand rather than a protection mechanism for their energy. It's for them, really. Boundaries really are not about other people. It's about yourself. And so I really love the fact that when I understood that, and understood that boundaries was more about like, how can I hold myself accountable to this? So when I ask someone, a client, like we have like certain times that we talk. So I'm not expecting a phone call from a client on an off hours or an off day, because sometimes I would talk to people on the phone. And so whenever there was a time I remember getting a phone call and I didn't pick it up, because I thought this to me was pushing a boundary that I put in place, not to keep them away, but to protect my energy. So I love that you talked about that, because I think boundaries really just are about creating that respect between you and the other people in your life, and showing them, because they can't read your mind, what you need. And it also teaches them that they can do the same, like they can put these in for themselves. So I love the fact that you do that. I know that you are an accountability coach as well. I know that's partly what you do. And it's one of the things that drew me to you, to what you do as, this, I found it very powerful combination, because there is that part, like you talk about with your clients, what to do. You're not telling them what to do, but you're working with them, helping them to come up with that strategy. But there's also the accountability piece. And I know sometimes it's hard to stay accountable to ourselves if we don't have someone else, checking in on us or doing that. So you blend that personal accountability into everything that you do. So my question for you is, why is that so important to you? And especially for women who are inventing or reinventing or starting later in life?
Because it's so easy to fall off the wagon. Again, because we have so many things going on, it's easy to fall off the wagon. And accountability, basically what it does is you say, this is what I want to do, the why as to why you want to do it, and when you want to do it, and, and how. So, and help you to get the results that you are looking for. Otherwise, it's easy. I mean, no one is perfect. Sometimes I fall off the wagon, and most people do. But as long as you are conscious of it, you're going to come back again and realize, okay, I have fallen off the wagon. Let me get back on track. And that's quite normal. But essentially, what accountability does is to keep you accountable for what you committed yourself to do. And because it's hard sometimes to work, you see, to do it on your own, because at the end of the day, we cannot forget that entrepreneurship, it can be a lonely journey. Basically, you work on your own. It's not like when you work at a company where you have a team of people and, everybody kind of like keep the wheel moving. But when you are an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, it's all you on your own. And it could get lonely. It could be disheartening at times. And by you having that accountability, someone that keeps you accountable for what you are wanting to achieve, it makes it much better. And if at those moments where you are like, I don't know what to do, or you are getting behind, that person, it's not going to tell you what to do. You already know, but it's just going to help you ease the journey. Yeah, I will say the journey and the steps for you to achieve, to make it easier, bring ease into your process and journey of making things happen.
Yeah, because I know the other part too to accountability is that we sometimes, if we say we're going to keep ourselves accountable, it can be very easy to say, well, just this one time. And then you skip something. And for example, say it's you had a plan to go to the gym 3 times this week and it just didn't work out. It was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that was the days, and you had certain times, and somehow something came up. And so then you didn't go. And then Wednesday came around and you're like, well, I've got this to do. And then you kind of fall off the wagon a little bit. And then the next, Friday comes along and you're like, oh, well, I guess I should go. And maybe you do. But then you look back and you start to beat yourself up thinking like, oh, because habits aren't easy. They sound easy. Anyone can say they can. No, they're not, because you have to start somewhere. You have to start. But then it's not just the starting, it's the consistency of waking up the next day, doing it again until it becomes something that you just automatically step into doing. And it's just like brushing your teeth, it became a habit. But at one point, your parents, they had to remind you, don't forget to brush your teeth. And they had to remind you multiple times until you started to do it on your own, and they didn't have to remind you again. So I love that. Again, like I said, the accountability piece is one, I guess, really, a favorite piece to what you do, because I really feel it can be so easy, especially like you were saying, it can feel like you're working on your business by yourself. But when you have someone who's working alongside you to help you, to remind you, and especially the other part about an accountability partner, which I love, is that you can, when you're telling somebody what you're doing, they can also remind you of your wins, especially if you forget them. That's another piece of accountability I think that's really special.
Yeah, I would say that's like the cherry on top. And I remember having my first client for accountability, and she was putting together an online course, and she put her own deadline. So I help her stay within those, meeting the deadlines, and she can revise the course and all of those things. So it was a quite interesting dynamic. And yes, it helps. I think everybody, I'm an accountability coach, but I also am part of a group and we hold each other accountable. And so it's always to do this journey with someone that can, help you along the way, that can have your back, in the sense of that keep you on taps as to the goals that you want to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to shift a little bit and talk about the online space, because we know that is a place where, of course, we're all there. I mean, a lot of businesses are now online. Very rarely do I hear of people that I know that are building offline. A lot of people I'm hearing are coming from offline and building online. And it's just because it adds that a little bit of, I guess, ease of being able to work from anywhere. Because, for example, I'm right now recording with you. I'm in Toronto, Canada, but, in a few weeks, I'll be back in Mexico, which I call Playa del Carmen, Mexico home. And so being able to do that because I have an online business has been very helpful. So I know there's a lot of pressure too, right? To be online and to be able to cut through the noise. There's such a hustle culture mentality out there that celebrates especially that fast growth and that constant output, because you see people saying, like, oh, my client did this. Do you want the blueprint before I make it paid? And to me, it's like, I understand where they're going with it, because they're trying to get people to come to them and ask them questions about what their services are, what their process is. But it doesn't mean it's for everyone. And so for me, I'm not a fan of that type of marketing. But my question, I guess, for you is, when you are working with someone or even just talking with someone about what you do, what do you say to that person when she is expressing to you that she feels behind, or she's unsure if she's doing enough or even doing the right things?
Well, I certainly don't do the cookie cutter type of marketing or system where, you go and purchase something and it's supposed to work for everybody, because it doesn't. And so it brings me to your question, is that you have to listen. You have to listen to the client and see and get an idea of their whole story. And then you start unpacking that and work your way through it to understand. You have to have an understanding of this person, personality, but also their business, their daily life. So you can, and how much knowledge also they have into what it is that they're doing. Because what happens a lot is these women they're spinning their wheels because everything they have tried the course, the have taken group coaching or taking the online course or whatever. And it's not that they're bad. It's mostly because it wasn't for them. It didn't meet them where they are. And that's what I like to do. I want to meet, the client where they are at. If it fits within my expertise and I know that I can help you, it has to be someone that I can help them where they are at. I remember having a conversation with a potential client that she was very angry and disappointed because she signed up for coaching and she realized that it wasn't for her because the person was already, her niche was for women who were at a much further in their journey, in their entrepreneurial journey and their business. They were probably making more than $10,000 a month, and this person was just getting started. So obviously she couldn't, let's say, slow down or get to where she was because her main group was people who were already past that. And so you have to be very careful at that. And that is why I like to be more customized coaching and meet you where you are at. Obviously, I work with women who are in the early stages of building their coaching or online business, service-based business. But at the end of the day, once you get to talk to them, you got to meet them where they are, where it is. And that happens a lot. And that is one of the reasons sometimes the coaching industry gets such a bad rep because of those kind of stories that take place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, final question. So many women in midlife are redefining what success looks like from when they talk about achievement to alignment and how they want to go from pressure to peace. And I'm really finding that women are becoming more self-aware of the question, is this all there is for me, for my life? That was a question that I asked myself several years ago. And so with that being said, what's one shift that you're witnessing that gives you hope about how women are leading and building in this next chapter?
I think women are more aware of there is more to life than they thought there was or it was. Also, because women are becoming more independent, financially independent, whether they have their own business or they have a well-paid job, a professional career where it allows them to be financially free. I think that creates a self-awareness that maybe before it didn't happen, and also open their eyes that there's more that they can do. It's like, I could do more than just this, what I just have. I think that is a lot of it has to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for you, what intention are you personally holding in this season of your business and life?
For me, what I want to do is continue my journey with my business and accountability coaching. One of the dream of mine is been to travel and live abroad part of the year. And so I can combine having a business that then I don't depend on having to work for someone else, and I can live by design. I can design, that's basically what I'm trying to say. I can design how I want to live. It gives me the freedom to travel, to live abroad if I choose to, when I choose, and do the activities that fill me in.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me today, Yaritza, and of course, sharing your journey from building your business to how you guide your clients to lead with clarity, to help them get clear on what their purpose is and to trust in themselves. So I think that's really important. And I've really appreciated hearing your perspective on building from alignment and creating that momentum without burnout. I really feel like you bring a really steady presence to this conversation. And I love that, as I said, I love the idea of not just the business side to it, but the accountability, because it can be super easy to be, in the flow when you're working with your client and saying, okay, this is the plan. This is what we've come up with together. But then not having that accountability, it could feel like, okay, I feel like I'm floundering over here. And then, it's like, that's not really serving them. And so I love that you brought those two together. I'm really, really excited that you are on the show today. I know so many women will feel supported by your message. So thanks again for being here with me and the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Leslie. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Yaritza directly or learn more about her Profit and Momentum program, you can find her contact information in the show notes. Remember, resilience isn't just about pushing through. It's about choosing to build a life that honors both your pace and your power. It means listening to yourself and trusting that you know what you want, what you need, and honoring your season, giving yourself full permission to succeed without self-sacrifice. True resilience is quiet strength. It's the courage to slow down when needed, the clarity to say no with confidence when it matters, and to be able to trust that consistency will carry you further than urgency ever could. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
You know the words dominating today's headlines.
Private equity,
generative capital gains tax,
America's chip
fueled by market volatility.
Bets on Fed rate cuts are
But do you understand how they impact your world and your wallet? In a world that skims the what, understand the why. Because context changes everything. Subscribe at Bloomberg.com.
Hi, it's me, Flo. Remember me from Ghost Hampton, the podcast? I was secretly in love with Lyle Hall. Well, now I'm dead and loving it. But let's talk about you. If you loved listening to Ghost Hampton, you can now spend the summer in the Hamptons. The original episodes are back, and now new episodes will be dropping every Friday. I may drop in too, just to make Lyle feel guilty. Ghost Hampton, the podcast, is now streaming everywhere.
Electric acid.